My name is Justin Garcia.
My name is Andy Montalvan.
I'm Juliana Santos.
I'm Benjamin Hornaday.
And I'm Bernardo Annapolis. Today we will be talking about the additions of federal IDs in national elections. To what extent would the requirement of a federal ID program impact voter participation in national elections? Well, the reality is there would be a negative impact due to the following reasons we will detail for you shortly. First reason, as you can see in this graph, the elderly population and the younger population tends to vote completely different. The young population votes much less than the elderly, but let's start with the young. The young votes less because of the lack of representation in the government, and this lack of representation tends to discriminate them from voting, and they feel like they don't want to, and because they don't appeal to the candidates. And the addition of a federal ID program would just ruin it for them. They would feel like they're being attacked. They can, sorry, but yeah, they don't feel the way like that. And the elderly, they tend to vote really high. They like to have the same government. But if a federal ID program was put in, they have a lot of limitations whenever they get a federal ID. For example, when they get a driver's license, sometimes they say no because of physical limitations. And they might feel like that those same limitations would apply here. But the 26th Amendment says the voting can't be denied due to the voting can't be denied due to age.
To add on to the young population, the young voting population, the young voters tend to vote a lot lower. According to Eric S. Fish in the 26th Amendment the 26th Amendment enforcement power, 19% of 18 to 29-year-old students tend to not have a proper ID that reflects their address, and due to this, the lack of an alternative or due to conflict, like Bernardo said, would lower the voting turnout rate, having averages of 26% through the 18 to 29 range, and the range of 16.3% to 48.4%. Compared to the other ranges, they tend to vote above 50%, like the 60 and 45 to 59-year-olds, and the low voting age for the young 18 to 29 has stayed low for 3 decades. The federal ID system does not provide a boost or a proper representation for the young voters.
So some soldiers would probably not have a voter's ID, and that is because most likely when people graduate from high school, they choose 3 paths. They either probably do nothing, go to college, or decide to join the military. And in the 26th Amendment enforcement power by Eric Fish, it states that college students are significantly less likely to have federal IDs. 19% of people ages 18 to 30 have no government identification that states their current address. So soldiers are also in between this age gap. And that means that they do have federal IDs because once they join the military, the government provides them with them. But if not, as you can see, 19% of those people, they would not go and would look for voter IDs because of the fact that it's just not on their interest. Also, with the addition of federal IDs, overseas soldiers would have more difficulties when voting, and that is because here is a picture of different U.S. military bases all around the world. And the 26th Amendment enforcement power states that the government has a need. There's an act that requires states to make absentee ballots for those soldiers, and they give them a 45-day window to be mailed back and sent out back to the U.S. so their votes can count. But these laws only apply to federal elections. They do not apply to local or state elections. So with the addition of a federal ID, these can compromise the process of sending those ballots over states, and this process can make harder for the participation of soldiers throughout the voter elections.
Candidates would be greatly affected due to the addition of a federal ID program, as already a large amount of the United States population do not take a part in voting. This were to be added, the percentage of people not voting will only increase. As you can see, Indiana already has an established ID system, and if this were to be applied nationally, 18% of the elderly populations, which include 65 years and older, wouldn't be able to take a part in these elections. This greatly affects candidates, especially ones who are conveying towards the elderly population, as they have even less people than ever before. This has also been attempted in other states, such as Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan, and has shown to not accomplish any of their goals and almost do nothing for those states. Overall, candidates would have trouble getting more people to vote for them than ever before.
So, all the points previously made in this presentation have been based off of facts and statistics. But a different side of this argument needs to be addressed, and that is the moral of the issue. As my partner Bernardo previously stated, the 26th Amendment specifically states that the rights of voters shall not be denied on the basis of age. But, as the points previously made in this presentation have clearly outlined, a federal ID regulation system would very much deny the rights of voters due to circumstances that arise because of age. And adding to this, the 10th Amendment specifically states that the power is not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people of America. A federal ID regulation system would greatly limit the powers of the states because it would essentially rid them of their own ability to independently regulate elections. This not only contradicts 2 different amendments in the Constitution, but also breaks a 200-year-old tradition. So, it can be said that a federal ID regulation system would limit the rights of the elders, limit the rights of the young, greatly affect and complicate the voting process for soldiers, shape our political environment to a negative end, and directly contradict the founding ideals of our nation. It can be said, it's safe to say that a federal ID regulation system would be the worst piece of American policy since Prohibition. What are your questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come together. All right. There you go. It's like a dancing show. All right, I got a question for each one of you. Justin, we're going to start with you. In the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve your team's presentation?
I'd say communication. We had a lot of issues where people weren't responding to texts, and we had to chase them down and call them. I'm guilty of being one of the ones who had to be chased down and call them due to technological issues or doing something else at the time.
All right, thank you. Andy, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem?
Well, I'd have to say Justin's, as he addressed the how the lawyers saw and how it was how the Constitution and how it would break 200-year tradition of the United States.
All right, thank you. Juliana, what was the strongest counter-argument to your conclusion that your team identified, and why so?
The strongest counter-argument would have to be well, when we were talking about is the Article 5 in the Article 5 amendment process, and that is because that could go against everything we said, because the amendment process, it shows the different laws, because we said how it would go against the different norms we've had for the country for the past years. But with the Fifth Amendment, with the amendment process, we would have had, it would go against everything we said, because with the different amendments added to the Constitution, we could regulate all the problems and issues we said the federal ID programs would add on to voting participation.
All right, thank you. Ben, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's conclusion.
I would say that the argument of the soldiers, the fact that they cannot have a proper representation without a delay, and help me understand the fact that there are limitations to the voting process, and that when a federal ID would be put in place, it would further delay it and make it harder for soldiers to vote.
Save the best for last. Bernardo, in what ways did you improve your ability to work with the group as a result of this project?
So normally when I work with a group, I'm very isolated, and in this group I was isolated as well. But I tried to be as open as I could possibly be. But I feel like I didn't do my best part. But they helped me understand, they helped me work, they helped me not procrastinate as much. They worked with me all through it, and then we worked together all throughout this process.
You can breathe. You're